Hello and welcome to Live Mindfully. I am your host, Laurie Moore. Today we are in part 3 of our 4-part series, diving deeper into the third key element in building more mindfulness in your life. This episode is titled, Be Organised. Let's get started. So in life, we are always ebbing and flowing. We go through big stages of growth, and often this can be followed by stages of stagnation or even decline. And this is an organic and very natural process that I think as humans we still haven't quite grasped. At least that is how I feel sometimes. I feel really energized in big growth periods and life always feels in flow. And then when it's time to rest, I can feel quite stagnant. And sometimes that feeling can present as depression for me almost. My mood really drops and I feel really unsettled inside of myself. And I do think we become addicted to the dopamine hit we get when we are achieving. And I think it's quite easy to mistake that short chemical boost in our brains for happiness. Monks often say that happiness comes in the state of being, not doing. Happiness is a choice that we make each day, and then we work toward having compassion for ourselves and everyone, which makes choosing happiness easier. In Buddhism, happiness is achieved when a person can perceive the true reality unmodified by the mental constructs we superimpose upon it. So what that means is we accept the ebbs and flows of life and stop wishing it to be one way or the other. And another big component of this is accepting the hours we have in a day and preparing our days accordingly. Right now, I have a really big to-do list. And if you have ever listened to this podcast before, you will know that I am not a fan of having a big to-do list. In episode 7 of Live Mindfully, I talk about how we stay on top of our to-do lists. And within that episode, I cite how successful and genuinely happy people stay on top of their to-do lists. And essentially, they don't have them. They have capture lists, and then they take items from the capture list and schedule it into their calendars each day and week. And that keeps them really focused on the task at hand. And I do this. I do this as well. But at the moment, I've had a couple of curveballs thrown my way, which has forced a couple of things back and meddled with my schedule. And it's in moments like these that I have to remind myself that I am not a Buddhist monk. I am only human. I have deadlines and school holidays is coming up. And I've been working weekends to try and catch up. And I am getting to the point where if I don't accept my current reality and get myself organized, I can sense this feeling of burnout on the horizon. And I really live by the famous quote from Benjamin Franklin, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And we don't like to fail. We don't want to fail things. And even if the teachings from failure are far greater than those from success, the teaching needs to be something more than I didn't put my best foot forward. We want to at least say, if we fail something, that we still tried our best. But when we have a massive to-do or capture list, and when we don't feel like we are in a state of flow, when we feel like we are trying to push everything uphill, when we feel like everything that can go wrong is going wrong, it can make mindfulness and compassion, generosity and kindness feel really hard, feel unachievable. And so when I feel like I am in that state, that's usually when I hunker down in stage 3 of mindfulness and focus more of my energy on managing my calendar, on seriously reviewing the capture list. I remove things from my calendar and possibly even the capture list. And I use my meditation time to decipher what is actually critical and what my mind is making critical. And I pull back from making more commitments until I feel really confident in clearing some of the things creating stress in my life. So back in episode 3, which was an awesome episode titled Your Mind is Powerful and So Are You, I remind everyone in that episode that our mind is really our friend. It's our friend who doesn't want us to get hurt. It's our friend who is trying to protect us. And it isn't who we are. Our mind is merely the thinking part of who we are. And so unfortunately, we do need to manage our thoughts and decipher which are real, which are problematic, which require more investigation, which we can let go of, which thoughts are unhelpful. And the best way to do this is by adopting curiosity and questioning which thoughts are true or not. So our mind can make everything look urgent. But when we truly look at everything on our capture list and in our calendar, we are the ones who make things urgent. And sure, we might like things to be different. We might want to knock a few things off our capture list. But when we look at our calendars and we start to schedule things in, we realize that's not possible. Perhaps our children have a lot on school-wise this week, or maybe our partner is away this week, meaning we just don't have as much time available to us. Maybe a colleague is off work and you need to pick up the slack. My advice would be to remind yourself, this is not forever. This is only for now. And when we give ourselves a big reality check, you'll be surprised by how quickly your mood shifts. And that's really what we are trying to achieve here. Because when we feel stressed or overwhelmed and irritated, our perception of reality becomes really foggy. And then sometimes we can perpetuate that situation because we don't take a pause. And then we start to spiral. And I'm sure we've all had that feeling where our mind has taken over, everything feels urgent, and we are now spiraling and we don't feel grounded, and we're actually not quite sure how to get back to that grounded state. So Wake Forest University, and there are many other studies on this as well, but this one in particular is going to be in the show notes. They have shown a decrease in mistakes and stress by simply writing a to-do list or a capture list each day for the next day. And the best time of day to do this is at the end of the previous day. because obviously you know what needs to be carried forward, and then taking this a step further, physically block out that time in your calendar to achieve those tasks that you have written down. And the reason we do this step is because when you are just bullet pointing tasks, and I do this all the time, it's really easy to bullet point like 100 things, which you are never going to achieve in a day. And this is one of the reasons I love a capture list, because a capture list captures all of your future tasks so they don't have to sit in your brain. But it isn't the list you are working off and staring at each day. That's your to-do list, and your to-do list should be much smaller, because hopefully you are being realistic about what you can achieve, and scheduling things into your calendar actually does force you to do this because you can see your available hours each day. And the other point I want to touch on as we come toward the end of this episode is the energy we spend thinking about tasks. And I found a quote. I have actually 2 quotes that I want to read to you. The first is anonymous, which is a bit sad. For every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. And the second quote is from Eleanor Roosevelt. It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. And I think that is a really good point. We spend a lot of energy on thinking about everything we need to get done, and I think that energy would be better placed and better put to use on planning what we need to get done instead. So the key takeouts from today's episode are: your mind is your friend, and if your mind is feeling really overwhelmed and stressed, create some space to observe your thoughts and decipher which thoughts are helpful, which are harmful, and which are actually true. Which thoughts are actually real. Your mind is a powerful creator of your reality, but you are still in charge of your mind. So if your mind is creating a reality that isn't sitting well with you, you have the power to change that. The second key takeout is accept your current state, whether this be ebbing or flowing. And the third, get your tasks out of your mind and down onto paper or into a task manager app on your phone, and then use that to schedule tasks into your calendar. And remember to be fluid with this. It might need to change. Things are going to come up. And think about what tasks could be delegated. Do you need to call on family for support right now? Are there things on your capture list that really aren't that important? Our aim here is to start to organize our lives a little better in an effort to simplify what is happening in the mind. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Live Mindfully with Laurie Moore podcast. I'll be back again next week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of this week. Until then, take good care of yourself.